Checking. Yep, it is recording. All right, so I'm going to do my own homework, and I have to use another browser to do this so that I have one logged in as instructor and the other one logged in as student. And Moodle. So regarding the district thing, the policy regulation thing, the district is now agreeing to form a work group so that so people can kind of come together to work on it, at the same work on it together. At least that's what oh, I just logged in as myself again. Ah.
Went on autopilot there.
Got too many identities, Professor.
All right, so this time I am a student, so I'll do this, as a student. So we go all the way to the project plan. The project plan is actually somewhat of a misnomer because it really kind of helps you with the project itself too. So with this project plan, the first thing you have to do is to revisit your own project proposal. I'm not going to do that because I don't really have a project proposal for the homework assignment that was due on Monday. But I would use it as an example. Okay, so if my project is like that, what am I going to write about it? So I would probably have a list of features. So there we go. So I should have done that. So a feature is an ability to do something that connects at least one of the use cases. In this case, a use case is just to play the game. I mean, that's really nothing else. With the application that we have been writing, you can have many features supporting a single use case. In this assignment, start with a list of features. And you can use a structured list to do list sub-features. So you can start a list and then you can have, this particular feature will also have these sub-features. And the way to do this is to use the HTML editor. When you click Add Submission, it should pop up an HTML editor like this one here. And by the way, in case you haven't noticed, there are two HTML editors in Moodle. One is Atoll, which is my default. The other one is cannot remember the name, but it's another one that is kind of more popular with people because it has been around for a long time. To change that, what you need to do is to go to your profile setting by clicking your own name. And when you click on your own name, you can see View Profile. And in View Profile, you will find, where is it? And zoom out way too much, so let me, okay, so in Edit Profile, there we go. So after you click View Profile, you can click Edit Profile. And when you go to Edit Profile, you can see there are several things you can change. The one that I want to change is my text editor. The default one is the Atoll HTML editor. TinyMCE is actually a kind of more mature product. It gives you more features, a lot more buttons. So if you want to change it, you can actually change it in your own profile. And you can switch back and forth if you want to. You try this one out and go like, I like the other one better. You can always switch it back. Okay. So I just want to show you how to do this, in case you want to try out a different HTML editor. And for those of you who are HTML wizards and you say, I don't need no stinking WYSIWYG HTML editor, I can type up every element, every tag manually, go for the plain text area approach. Okay.
Now, can you create your HTML outside of Moodle and upload it?
Okay, that depends on what you mean by uploading.
You can upload using Control-C, Control-V.
Yeah.
You mean copy and pasting?
Well, if that counts as uploading, I'll take that.
Yeah, you can actually copy and paste from a word processor, but one word of warning. Microsoft Word copy and paste into the HTML editor does not work very well. It works for the most part, but it does give you all kinds of really funky stuff. When you look at the HTML code, it's all messy. It's all over the place. So if you're planning to do that, I would suggest using LibreOffice. which has cleaner code when you copy and paste.
I was actually thinking of just making my document in Notepad++.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would definitely work.
Okay.
That will definitely work.
And that's changing it to the plain text editor.
Yeah, you can also change to plain text editor inside an HTML editor. It allows you to switch mode inside the WYSIWYG interface. So let me show you that also. So let me go cancel this one. I don't really need to update. I didn't change anything. So if I go back to, there's no quick and easy way to go back to the class. So yeah, except for the history button. So now that I'm going back to the project plan and reopen the submission here, this is the HTML editor. The first thing you might want to know is this little button here, because when you press this button, it will open up 2 additional rows of buttons and features. Okay, which gives you most of the tools that you need, especially for a class like this. For those of you who are interested, this one actually has a math equation editor. So if you click on this one here, it gives you a math equation editor, and you can basically use a WYSIWYG way to enter math equations that will be typeset correctly with all the nice symbols and whatnot. But for a class like this, this is pretty much all you need. You have control over the style. So we have the headings, normal paragraph, address, and pre-formatted. We have boldface, italic. We have all the list features, all the usual stuff: underline, strike through, subscript, superscript, alignment. Center to the left or to the right. You can indent or unindent if you want to. So it has most of the features that we need in order to type up a usual document. So I'm going to use this to type up my own answer to this assignment. So I'm going to start with heading 1 and basically say, okay, this portion will deal with the features. And inside features, I personally like lists, okay, because it is just easy to look at all the items when there's no need to make an argument for anything. So there's no need to use paragraphs in this case. So in this case, the feature of my application, which is the one that flies a drone, and shoots something to a target, is allows a user to drag and specify a flight path. Okay. And then the second thing that it will do is after a delay, automatically fly a drone according to the reported flight path, and then during flight, a click will launch an object to the click position. Okay, so those are the 3 things that we have. Those are the 3 features that we have already implemented in this particular application. And I can add some more to it. If I want to make this application more challenging, I can basically add more to it by having walls, right? Okay. So I can specify and say can maintain a set of maps. Each one has obstacles. Keep score and keep track of projectiles used. So you can just keep on going and going with all the features. Now some of these features obviously we have not implemented yet. However, if I want to implement these features, this is how I would do it. Keep track of I-score, and obviously in this case I have to specify how am I going to score this particular application. All right, so these are the features. And then the next thing we have to do is, okay, now this is also important. Once you have typed up, some portion of the text, don't try to type the entire thing, like spend 3 or 4 hours to type up the entire thing, and then save it. Okay, it's not gonna work. Moodle will time out in 4 hours. Okay, and once Moodle times out, and you click the save button, you would lose everything. Okay, which is not cool. Okay, it has done it to me many times. Okay, so I've been burned by this one many times. There's no way to turn off the timeout feature either. So what you want to do is to save your document often and just go back and change it and add more to it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I will save the file, save changes. Okay, when you save changes, it is not the same thing as turning it in and you cannot edit anymore. What you want to do is after you save changes, just click edit submission, and it will allow you to go back into the document to continue your editing. Is that part okay? So I would do that, once in a while at least. Okay, it doesn't matter, even though it seems like a waste of time because I got some more stuff to type. If you're kind of stuck and you want to think about what you want to do, just use that time to save the document and then come back to wherever you were and then continue editing at that point. Do we have any questions about this part? Okay, so it is strongly recommended that you do not wait too long before you save changes. Now, once you save changes, your computer can blow up, and whatever you have saved is already on the server. Okay, so it is safe. So that's why it is important. I also tried out this on an Android device. The HTML editor actually works on a mobile device as well. So when you're on a bus, okay, when you're waiting for another class and you have your mobile device with you, you can actually work on your homework assignment on your mobile device like that. So are there any questions about this step? No questions? Okay. So if there are no questions, I'm going to move on. And it's not quite the time to do a screenshot yet, so I will show you how to do a screenshot and include it in your document at that time. Now, for those of you who say, I can work on the HTML code without any problem. Actually, I did change the HTML editor. This is not Atto anymore. Oh, because the default is TinyMCE. I distinctly changed mine to Atto. That's why. Okay, so most of you will see this one unless you have changed it already. Now with this one, you can also look at the HTML code and you say, okay, but I want to control something here. I want to use a particular type of span, for a certain amount of text. You can use this feature here. So you can, once you click it, it will go to a HTML source editor, and now you can do whatever you want to do in HTML. And when you're done with this one, you can switch back to, you can just click update, and it will go back to the HTML mode. So it's a kind of like a cool feature in case you have something that you want to inject into your document that is not supported by one of these buttons. Another feature of the TinyMCE editor, which is not present in the Atto editor, is the toggle full screen mode button here. This is the last one here. If you click this button, it opens up the entire screen for editing. So it's nice if you have a smaller screen because now you don't have a tiny little area for your editor. Instead, you have basically your entire full screen for editing. Now, if you combine this with F11 of your browser, then you have pretty much the entire screen for editing. And if you don't need all the extra junk here, then you have like a pretty good chunk of area for editing at that point. Okay. So are there any questions about all this stuff? The downside of opening up like this is you cannot read the instruction anymore. Oh, it's only one ring. Okay, so with the non-full screen mode, I can go back and forth and find out, okay, what else am I supposed to do? Okay, the next one is to organize the user interface of your application, unless you have an app that is very dynamic in nature, kind of like the one that I'm writing right here, which is because it's a game. You can draw everything up and then do a screenshot. So let me show you how I would do that. So I'm going to go to AI2, App Inventor 2. And if I don't have that already, I can just make new one, right? So go to My Projects, start a new project, and we'll call this drone, like that. And now we can do a little mock-up screen. So I'm not going to include any logic, but I will include enough stuff that it kind of shows what the screen is supposed to look like. So the splash screen can be a very simple one, or you can make it kind of fancy. Okay, so however you want to make it, you just kind of have to design the screen, like here, correctly. So if I want the splash screen to look in a particular way, I'm not gonna waste a whole lot of time to do it here. So I will just drag a label into here, and in the label I would say, drone RC remote control, and let's just say that's the name of the game. Okay. And then what I can do is to change the font size, make it bigger. Okay, so let's say pick 24 point font here, and then make it mono space, and we'll give it a button so that we can move on. So the button is going to say, start here. Okay. Now obviously this is really minimalistic, right? But the whole point is, okay, so now that we have a screen design, how do we take a screenshot and include it into the document? That's the next step. This part kind of depends on your operating system. In Windows, is there a way in Windows to take a screenshot of only a portion of the screen? Or does it always...
there's a key
Snipping tool.
trigger it.
A snipping tool?
Yeah.
Is it built into Windows?
It is 7 and up. Vista and up?
Okay, 7 and up?
No,
Okay.
Vista didn't have.
Vista didn't have it up.
7 up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used Gadwin
Okay.
for Windows. That works
Okay,
nicely.
that works. I use... there are many ways to do it. If you intend to do any post-processing anyway, you can also start it with the GIMP. And I think this is the same across all operating systems. I'm not 100% sure about that. But the GIMP has, in File, you can go to Create, and in Create you have Screenshot. So what it does is it will start up the screenshot utility of the operating system and give you options. I personally like select a region to grab, so I'm not grabbing the entire screen because most of it has like a 1080p screen, and it's way too big for this application. So I'll just take a portion of it, and I'll just click. It allows a delay too. The delay is not really necessary in this case, so I'm going to click snap. Oh, okay, that won't work. That won't work because I have to switch to the other screen first, because I can only display one application at a time. So I need to give myself enough time to switch to the other one.
Be able to alt tab.
But I can't do it after this one. But after this, if I give myself like a delay, like 5 seconds, then I'll be able to do it. So I will select, after the delay, drag your mouse to select the region. Okay, so there we go. So that gives me enough time to switch back to this application. I wait until the cursor turns into the crosshair, and now I can just select the portion that I want, and it automatically put it into the GIMP. Now once it's inside GIMP, you can do the scaling, you can do all sorts of funky stuff with it, even add stuff to it. Okay, so if I want to include a picture of a drone, but I decided not to do it in App Inventor 2, I can do it here. So I can just do it here and select a pen. Which pen? This is a pencil. This is a brush. So I can use a pencil and just kind of draw a drone. I know this is really crude, but that's the idea. Okay, so I can now save the document. Okay, so I will export the document or export the bitmap to a PNG file. So I'll just export it to this is the splash screen, so I just call it splash.png. Do the export, and now I can switch back to the browser where I'm doing my homework assignment. Oh, I'm already in the browser here, but switch back to the assignment. So switching back to the assignment, I now open up a new section that talks about screenshots, and there's a particular title that I want to use: screens and screen layout. Okay, so I'll just call that screens here, screens. So, and I'll just say the following is a splash screen, and then I want to include the picture. I want to include the bitmap. To include the bitmap, there's a feature in the HTML editor to do that. It is this little icon here. It allows you to insert and edit image. It allows you to do some scaling after the fact. So I just click this button here, and it says, okay, where's the bitmap? If you already have the bitmap uploaded to, let's say, the Power Server or some other place, you can just put the URL to the image here. If you are uploading the image, then you click the button, find or upload an image, and it will automatically switch to the upload portion. So you browse, find the image. I think I saved mine in /temp. So here's my splash screen. I click open and upload the file, and then it will prompt you for some additional stuff that you need to do with HTML documents, like the alt tag and stuff like that. So we have the image description. So I would say this is my splash screen for the drone app. You can also go to the other ones. It allows you to set the alignment of the bitmap, and this preview changes accordingly, which is kind of nice. You can specify a border if you want to. You can go to advanced and change some additional attributes of your image. Okay, for the most part, I just use the image description, and that's all I usually do. And then you click insert, and here we have the bitmap inserted into the document. So it's not really a terribly difficult process. You just click a button, upload the image, and then answer a question like what is this describing, and that's it. So are there any questions about this particular process? Taking a screenshot. You don't have to use AI for the mock-up screen. You can use any tool you want to make up a mock-up screen. You just have to make sure it's doable in App Inventor 2. So you might as well just use App Inventor 2 for that purpose. So, but that part is up to you. Okay, so now that we have the screenshot, you probably want to include multiple ones. So every screen that you want your application to have, just have a mock-up and include it here. Now, if you do it in App Inventor 2, you're basically doing a part of your project as you create this document. Okay, even though there's no logic, okay, no code or blocks associated with the visible components, it's still helpful because you are actually doing your own assignment. Okay, but what if a screen doesn't fit in one screen? I got too much stuff and it needs scrolling. Well, that is a good indicator that you need multiple screens and not just one. Okay, because with a mobile application, the whole thing is you don't want to require the user to have to scroll a lot. Okay, so for the most part, if one screen is too big to fit within just the physical screen, you probably want to use a second screen or a third one and to implement your application. So after the screen layout portion is implementation. So with implementation, there's a subpart here making an inventory of components that you will probably need. Okay, so this is basically for you to go through all of the components that App Inventor 2 supports, and then you identify, oh, this is one particular thing, and this is the other thing that I need. Now, when you have the screenshots, that already tells you what components you need, right? Because when you're making your screens, you're already selecting and saying like, oh, I need this one here, I need this one over here. But the most important part are the hidden stuff. Okay, the hidden components are the ones that are not visible from the screenshots. Okay, so those are the ones that you really have to think about and go like, okay, do I need any of these hidden components? And if so, which one do I need? So what I'll do is I'm going to go back to my document, and I'll go ahead and give myself an inventory of the components that I will need. So go back to the document here, and now I specify an inventory of components that I need for this application. So I use another heading here and say components, and there are several inventory. Okay. Component inventory. And in this case, a structured list, can be helpful because you can say, okay, I need this thing here, but this thing also has, several components inside. For instance, I need a canvas. Okay, so I need a canvas for the main game area, but in the canvas I have components. So I use the indent tool. No, that's not it. The indent tool is this one. So I use an indent tool and say, we need to include one sprite to drag around to record the flight path, one sprite for the drone, one sprite for the target, and one sprite for the projectile, the thing that shoots out of the drone to the target. Okay. I have other components, like for instance, I have a label to display the current score, a label to display the number of projectiles. So you basically outline, all of the components that you need for your app, in this particular section. These are the visible ones. They're the easy ones to spot, and they're the easy ones to catalog. What about the other ones? Well, I also need a clock, right? So I need a clock to detect timeout, to start the flight path, to start the flight, because the path is already plotted by that time. A clock to move the drone. What else do we need? All the hidden stuff. Now, at this point, because I know my app needs to record a flight path. Now, if this is before I actually do the implementation, then I can only say that I need a way to record the flight path. Okay, not necessarily knowing that exactly I need a list to do it, but I would basically say a way to record the flight path. Okay, if you don't know exactly how to do it, just say that I need something to do this. But the important part is knowing what you need to do. Okay, you need a component to do this part here. What else do we need? Now, if you're keeping track of high score, do you want the high score to go away and reset every single time you restart the application? So you need a persistent way to store the high score, right? So if you don't know exactly whether you want to use a TinyDB, you can just say a persistent way or persistent storage to store the high score. Or if you know already, then you can say TinyDB to store high score and other configuration values. Okay. What else do we need, in terms of components of this application? Maybe I want people to have access to a help document of this application. So in that case, I would say, a web viewer to display documentation. Okay. As I said last time, it is a good idea to use a web viewer as to display documentation or the help screen, because this way you can maintain the help text, the document, somewhere else, and it's not inside the document, inside the application. And somebody is going to say, but I don't know how to make a website. I don't have a Power account to make a website. Well, the answer to that question is easy. You all have apps.losreals.edu, and you can use Google Site to create as many sites as you want and as many pages as you want per site.
Blogger and anything else.
Yep. So that would be your ticket out of this one. Okay. Now the let me show you what I mean by that, because I don't want to just talk about it and
Prove
not.
it.
Sorry.
Prove it.
Yep. Prove it exactly.
And roll sheet.
And roll sheet. This would be a good time. I actually brought it today. Actually, I had it the other day too. I just couldn't find it because it was at the bottom of my bag, so it's kind of like crinkled. Yep. Thank you. All right. So I'm gonna log into my app account here. And once you get to this account, my screen may not look exactly like yours because I'm faculty and I cannot use Gmail.
It's the same.
Looks the same,
Yeah.
except in this case, you can see right here, students only, employees use Outlook, which I do not understand. I mean, they could have supported both, but they had to use specific logic to disable Gmail for us.
Sounds like it's more work than we're able to set.
Yeah, it is. So if I try to go into Gmail, oh, it actually works now. Holy smokes, they actually enable it.
Oh.
Huh?
It took you to your Dr. Hack apps, not your.
Oh, okay, yeah. Bummer. Okay. So the question now is, if I get back into here and I go to sites, is it going to the sites of Dr. Tech, or is it going to the sites of my apps account? I guess we'll find out. That would be my apps account, so that's cool. Alright, so once we get to the site account here, the first thing you want to do is to say create, unless you already have a site created. You can use a blank template, or you can browse gallery for more. If you want to start from scratch, this is the way to do it. So I'll just say this is my drone app site, and you can name it anything you want to. Now the other thing that you want to know is it gives you a site location, which means this is actually visible from the entire web. Okay, as long as you are a student here, you have your apps account. Now, when you are no longer a student here, I'm not sure for how long they will keep your apps account. Does anyone know?
Not long.
Not long. I don't know how long they will keep it, but as long as you're a student here, this will still be available. You can select a theme, and there are plenty to play with. I'm not.
Give the ownership over to your another Google account before they delete it.
Yep. Is there an easy way to
Yeah, you just
port it?
basically add someone as an admin. And
Oh,
then,
okay.
And then you tell once it's accepted,
Mhm.
they're quote admin on the site. Then you tell it to go ahead and make them the owner.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so now you can say create, and it will create it. Now, one really kind of nice feature of Google Sites is there is an option. You can make your Google site mobile sensitive. In other words, when you display with a full browser, it looks just right for a full browser on a big screen. But when you have a smaller screen, it can change its CSS accordingly to display properly on a smaller device. So it can do it automatically if you change the settings correctly. So now that you have a site, all you really need to do is to add additional pages, and one page per document, and you don't want it to be too big. One thing you want to do is to make it mobile sensitive. So you can go to page settings, I think.
No.
No.
You gotta go to go there, and then it's manage site or no, edit site layout.
Edit
It's one
site
of the two.
layout.
Yeah, it's one of the two.
And let's see, sidebar, heading.
Then it's under the manage site.
Okay, this is managed site. There we go. So under mobile, there's a check mark here that says it automatically adjusts site to mobile phones. So if you want, well, this is relevant to what we are doing because we are trying to write apps for mobile applications. So you might want to check this one, just so that it displays correctly on a mobile device. So just click this one here, and click Save. So now with this particular site, if I try to look at it from the perspective of a mobile device, it will display it correctly. And I have tried this already. It actually does work, which is kind of cool. Are there any questions about this part here? So I'm not going to get too much into the documentation part because it really depends on your application. But the to add a page here or to change the content of a page, you just click Edit Page, and it gives you this almost the same kind of tools as in Google Documents, except it's not as full blown because this is only for HTML editing. But you get most of the same tools here, and then you can just type your stuff. You can also insert images, insert links, tables and contents and stuff like that. So you have a lot of tools that you can utilize to create your web page. Any questions about using Google Sites? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to go back to my assignment here. And this will be a good time to save the document, even though I'm not quite done yet, but I just want to make it clear. And by doing this a few times in class, I'm hoping that you guys will remember to save it, because I've been bitten by this one a lot, so I learned my lessons. All right, so now I can say, okay, I think I have thought of all of the components for this particular application. So now I need to connect the user interface and data components by using a table. And as I said a little bit earlier, instead of using a table in the HTML editor, which you can, but it's kind of troublesome, I personally would just use LibreOffice Calc, which is the spreadsheet program in LibreOffice, and make that table here. All right, and this is a document that I can probably delete. It's for another class, so let me just go ahead and close it. And then we create a calc spreadsheet. So you just have to use columns for one and use rows for another. It's entirely up to you, which one you want to use for UI or user interface features and which one you want to use for the data items. So I would use rows to represent user interface items. So in this case, we have a canvas, and in the canvas we have a drag sprite. We have a drone sprite. We have a target sprite. We have a projectile sprite. And then we have a high score label. High score label. We have a current score, okay, current score label. And then we have TinyDB. Now TinyDB is kind of one single entry, but at the same time we are storing multiple items in the TinyDB, which is okay. I mean, at this point we're still planning, so it's okay just to use TinyDB here. We have two clocks. We have one for timeout clock, and the other one is, I'll just call it animation clock or flight clock, whatever you want to call that. So what I'm doing here is I'm outlining all of the data components and also user interface components that I need for this particular application. I think I just contradicted myself, because one is supposed to be user interface components and the other one is for the data components. So on one side we want user interface components, the other one to have data components. So I messed up here. So I messed up. No, not yet. I have not messed up yet. These are all user interface.
The last three.
The last three, sort of. Yep. So I'll just go ahead and copy in this one, paste this one here. Copy, paste. And I'll cut and paste this better. So this one. I probably need some additional stuff like the flight path itself. Okay, so flight path. And at this point, I don't even know whether I want to use a list or some other thing to implement the flight path. I just need to know there's a flight path. Now you don't really need to use a list to implement a flight path. Well, you kind of, yeah, you have to use it. There are other ways to do it, but a list is really the easiest way to do it. All right. So now I have to make the links and say, okay, which one is connected to which other one. All right, so we'll start with the label for the score, okay? So right away, we can see that, oh, okay, so which data item do we link to the score label? It's not TinyDB because it is not the high score. With the high score, yeah, we can make a link here and say, store high score, use TinyDB to track the high score. So there's an entry here. With the projectile sprite, the projectile sprite is connected to the canvas sprite here. So we'll deal with that later. The flight path is related to which one? It's related to two, right? Two items. The drag sprite is for recording, and then the drone sprite is for replaying or animating. Doesn't matter how you want to phrase it. The target sprite is connected to a data item that I have not included into this table. So now I just realized, hey, I need something else here, in this table. I need the coordinate of the target. So target coordinate. I'll just use coord here. So target coordination is connected to the canvas itself. Okay. So the canvas, I'm going to use the touch event of the canvas to remember where is the target. So this is for recording, but it is also going to be useful for the target sprite here, okay, which is also for recording. It's also useful for the projectile sprite because it will determine the heading of the projectile sprite. Okay, so the projectile sprite, it will change the heading. I'm just going to write down heading here to remind myself, how it is related to the item. So this is what I mean by, populating a table. You have your columns and rows. So if you look at one row and you say, oh, no column is corresponding to this row, that means you might need an additional column. Okay? Or if you look at, the columns and you say, oh, but there are no rows corresponding to this column, that means you probably need to add a new row to make that connection. What about the animation clock, okay, which is a non-visible component? Which visible component is it connected to? This one, right? So it is to animate the drone sprite. What about the timeout clock? The timeout clock serves one purpose, but that one single purpose connects two components. The first one is the background of the canvas. The way I implement it is I change the background color first. So the timeout clock, may change the alter background BKGND color. Okay, I'm just using some abbreviations here. But it also does something else. It will start the other timer. So that's one thing that is not easily represented here, but I can specify because the timeout clock and the animation clock are eventually connected. So I can use the canvas to connect these two. So I can say start background, start animation. So the canvas, that's an interesting one. How am I connecting the two data items without a user interface item between them? So I'll have to think about this one. Let's see, do we have any rows that has no columns? Score label. Okay, score label has no column corresponding to it. That means, I'm missing something here. I'm missing a non-visible item that is related to the score label itself. What am I missing here? I mean, the name of the score label kind of implies that.
Counter maybe?
A counter, a score, right? So I need to maintain a score which is not visible. So I just put score here, which is not visible. And, oh, by the way, when your table gets too big and it's not manageable, There's a way to split the screen so that you can see one part and it will still scroll correctly for the other part. If you place your mouse cursor all the way down here, I'm hoping everybody can see it. Let me change the screen size first. So I can drag it up so that you guys can see it. Okay, so there's a little thing here between the end of the thumbnail and the other bar. If you place your mouse over here, it changes its icon to the double-sided arrow. At this point, if you drag it over here, it is not deleting the columns. What it is doing is it's splitting the screen into two halves in this case. One half is basically this part here, the other half is here. You can scroll each one individually, but when you scroll in the other direction, they are synchronized. So that makes it easy to line up items when your spreadsheet gets too wide, and you can still say, oh, okay, this is the row corresponding to score label, and this is the column corresponding to score. I need an entry here. Okay. So you can say, reflect, the score label reflects the current score. Okay. But one other item has to correspond to score, because how do you update? When do you update score? Come on, you guys know it. You can use either the target sprite or the drone sprite, okay? Because it depends on where you put the logic of detecting whether they are colliding or not. So if you put that logic into the target sprite, which is probably the better way to do it, then you can just go here and say, update the score. Are we doing okay so far with this code? Okay. So this is a table really just to help you, kind of visualize what kind of components you have that are visible and how it connects to components that are not visible. Okay. If you're missing some of the components in the earlier parts, this will help you identify the missing parts. You go like, oh, okay, I got this visible component, but it has no connection to to all the non-visible components. Then it's not really serving any purpose. Are there any questions? Now, what if you have one component that has a connection to one visible component that only connects to a visible component? You can always add a column like this, okay? So let's say we're dealing with the splash screen in this case, okay, splash screen and the main screen here, okay? So the splash screen doesn't really do a whole lot, okay? Unless you wanted to display the high score and stuff like that. Otherwise, the splash screen is really just one step so that you can get into the main screen and it displays the copyright notice and stuff like that. So what you can do is to have main screen also here, as a column, and then you can connect these two and say the splash screen, starts the main screen. But it's basically just a way for you to associate and say this item is related to this item here through a particular action. All the connections are actions. Okay, recording, replaying, record, change the heading, update. You can see all of these are, actions. Are we still doing okay so far with this part? Okay. So when you're all done, this is, also the other part where you want to save kind of often, but doesn't have to be as often depending on the reliability of your computer and your operating system. So I'm going to save this one as the table. I'll just call it table. And back to the document here, back to the web document. Now when you upload the spreadsheet, you have to use the file submission area. And you just click here, you browse, you find the document you want to upload, and you just click, just upload. Once you upload, there's one additional step. Okay, don't forget the next step, because if you forget the next step, it's not going to take it. So the next step is to make sure you click Save Changes, because I think if you don't click Save Changes, it's not there yet. And once you click Save Changes, now we have the document itself updated, saved, and we have the file submission also updated here. What if you make changes to the document and you want to upload it again?
Edit submission.
Hmm?
Edit submission.
You can edit submission first. Yes. So let's say that we go back to the spreadsheet here, and I'm gonna add something to it. So let's see. We have TinyDB and the high score. So under TinyDB, we might want to say, TinyDB high score. Oops. This is that's the user element part. So I want to store the high score into TinyDB. So I'm basically storing the score into TinyDB. When do we trigger that action? When the game is finished, right? So at the end of game, or whenever you update the score, it is a good time to also check whether you want to update the high score. So whatever element is used to update the score is also an element that might update the high score, which is connected to the TinyDB. So that means in this case it's the target sprite. So in this case you want to say, okay, check and update high score. Alright, so now we have just made a change to the document. Save the document first. And now how do we update it in your homework submission? Scroll all the way down and you can see that your submission is already here. Now, it doesn't give you the upload link again. You can see that there's no upload link anymore.
It's on your file.
So what you need to do is to click the file itself and delete it first. So you say delete, say OK. It's not deleting the file on your PC. It is only deleting the one that you have uploaded already. So you have to delete the one that you have already uploaded. Then you can upload the updated one. So now you can see the upload interface is open again, and you can either drag and drop or just re-upload the same document. So that's how you update a document that is already uploaded. You have to first delete the document and then upload it again. Are there any questions about this entire process? Now, I would definitely click, save changes, just to make sure that the updated document is already saved onto Moodle before you continue with any further editing. Any questions? No questions? Okay, but at some point your table is going to be very difficult to read because, the text displays, normally horizontally, and it will take up a lot of space. So if that is getting too difficult to read, you can always change the heading and change the orientation of the heading. That may not be very helpful because you still need something in the middle of the table. But if you want to, you can go here, select all the heading cells, right-click, go to Format Cells, and then you can go to Alignment and change the orientation of that text. So you can basically say, okay, let's change the orientation so it's vertical. You click OK, and now all of those labels are put vertical. So that might be a useful feature, but it depends on what else you have to type in the table. So it may or may not be useful like that. Okay. Any questions? No questions? Okay. So whenever you feel like it, whenever you feel that okay, I'm done for now. Just click Save Changes, and then you can come back and edit it at a later point. Any questions? Okay, what if you did a part of your homework assignment at home, you uploaded a spreadsheet document already onto Moodle, and now you're at school, you got some free time between classes, and you say, oh, you know what, I just remember what I need to do with the table. And you're not at home, you don't have the original document. What do you do?
Download it.
Yep, download it back from Moodle, work on it, and then re-upload it. So you can kind of use Moodle as a thumb drive, as a web drive or network drive, to keep track of that one single document. Any other questions? You can use Excel as a spreadsheet program. Okay, I can open up Excel documents. That's not an issue, or I can use LibreOffice. That will still be okay. There are some spreadsheet files that I cannot open. What is that program or that little tiny Office suite that Microsoft used to distribute? I cannot remember the name of it, but the form, whatever format it puts out, I cannot open that. It's not Excel, it's some other product from Microsoft, but it's in the past. Yep.
Will it be a problem if we actually code the table using HTML?
That would not be a problem.
Okay, good.
For those of you who want to try it out, you can certainly do it like this too. If you want to use HTML tables, there's a tool in HTML in the HTML editor, which is only available in TinyMCE and only after you expand it into full screen mode, as far as I remember. And it's over here. That's the table tool. So you can use that tool and go here and click it open, and then you can specify the number of columns. So let's say 8 columns and 8 rows, and then you can specify the detail of your table. Border, say 1. Yep.
And sorry to bug you on the HTML side, but you would, if you're going to cut and paste, you would cut and paste the body tags. Yes, you don't have to cut and paste the entire document. From HTML. The browser
right,
wants you
just
to
the
have
tag
the
for the
full row
table.
tags, but you would just want the body tags.
Right. Okay, it will look like this because before you type anything, the columns are there's nothing to display in the columns. So it makes it kind of difficult to deal with a larger table because until you type something, the columns have no width to speak of, right? And then there's another way to do this too. If you use LibreOffice, it does a fairly good job of copying and pasting. So you can actually do a copy from here, go into the HTML editor, and do a paste over here. It transfers for the most part okay. I mean, you lose some of the formatting that you could do in the spreadsheet program, but for the most part it preserves the content of the table. So that's the other way to do it. All right. Any questions about the project plan that you have to turn in on Tuesday? No questions? It doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be like 100% complete. Okay, it's just a way to start you thinking about the implementation of the program. All right. Any questions? No. Yeah, go ahead.
Notepad++, you can use that to maybe some of like the text sections if
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Well, Notepad++, if I understand correctly, is not an HTML editor, right? You
It's like
can.
a composer. You can write your tags.
Yeah.
And it does give you some features in terms of making sure your tags are okay. But
Okay.
It's not a composer.
But it's not a composer. It's not WYSIWYG. Yeah. So if you want to do it that way, if you want to do it that way, what you can do is to do some of that code over there, and then turn this into edit HTML mode, and then copy and paste into here. But when you copy and paste like this, you have to make sure that. Oh, where's my? I lost my button because I turned the other side to full screen mode. Okay, if I don't use full screen mode on the other side, and I turn on this, I still cannot scroll it. Oh, I can now. So you have to remember to update after you do the pasting. Then it will update the HTML document itself. Any questions about this? Yep. I think this HTML editor is fairly mature. TinyMCE is a much more mature product compared to Atto. So I think you would not encounter too many problems with that. Unless you copy and paste from Microsoft Word, then bad things can happen.
That can happen under other circumstances.
keep clicking and save changes too, right? To not lose.
Yep.
You
Yep.
could
Yep.
say you save changes, you can log out, log back in.
Yep, exactly. So I can give it a try here. So if I want to emphasize user by using a bold, is it a B tag or
That'll be,
is
yeah, that'll make it bold.
that would make it bold?
Yeah.
So if I turn this on and just say update, if I go back to the WYSIWYG portion, it's updated automatically. So you can kind of interactively go between the WYSIWYG mode and the
Design view.
yep. So for people who are kind of experienced, in HTML editing, you can certainly do it, in a kind of mixed way. Yep. But you don't have to do it that way. Any questions? If you want to insert some additional stuff like media stuff, you can click this link here. I have not used it. You can upload a sound, video, or applet. If you want to create a link, you write the text of the link first, and then you use the link tool to link that selected text to a particular URL. So that's how that part works. Yep.
We include like questions we may have, like we're not sure how to.
That would not be a bad idea. Now, if you are including, that's a very good point. Thank you for pointing that out. Now, if you have any questions about your application, like I'm not sure how to do this, whether to do it or not, or any form of question, you can add all the questions, but you might want to highlight the questions so it is kind of identifying itself as questions. So that is a very good idea. So you can either
Section at the end.
yeah, I would put it as a section at the end here.
Yeah, just have that be an
Just have its own heading, and say just say, explicitly questions for tag. Okay, so this way I know those are questions directed to me and not your note to self. Okay, these are questions that I need to answer later on. These are questions for me. And if you want to make it very highlighted, you can also select it, and you can change the. There should be a way to change. Yeah, there we go. You can change the background color and just kind of highlight it. So this way, it's like, okay, it stands out. Tag, read this part. But that's a great idea. This is a very good opportunity to kind of ask questions. And because it prompts you to think more about the project, it's also, most people will probably end up with some questions, which is great. Any other concerns of the project plan? Do you guys need more time to work on this?
It would be great if we could turn it out.
Well, the more time you spend working on this, potentially it is good because that means by the time you actually implement the program, it's more complete because you have thought out the project more.
Yeah, and experimented a little more.
Right. So let me go back to the other browser where I'm instructor, and I'll change it.
That way we can ask questions in class on Monday. if we
Yep.
need to.
You have one more
And then
class
go back
to-
and experiment and
Yep.
turn it in on Wednesday.
Yep, that's a good idea. I just don't want to postpone it too much, to the point where you don't have enough time to actually code the project.
Don't need to say that.
Sorry?
You're preaching to the choir there.
All right, so now the project plan is postponed, and you can. Oh, somebody sent me a message. So the project is now postponed, and the due date is now reflected as the 5th of November. Any other concerns, other questions about this particular coding assignment? Any questions? Okay. So remember, the important part is to get the GUI part done first, okay, to make it look right. Because once you have the user interface elements or components on it, it kind of really prompts you to think about, okay, what do I need to do when this is pressed? Okay, what do I do when, how do I populate a list picker? Okay, so that would kind of prompt you to ask all of those questions and, kind of help you finish that table that you need to do. Any particular concerns of the blocks, like the code, portion of App Inventor?
suss this out. Is it, are there mathematical constants in the blocks editor, like pi, like e?
I don't think so. Because everything is here.
Not finding them.
Yeah, everything is here. Related to math and numerical values. So if you don't find it here, that means it's
Okay.
not here.
Okay.
And
So it's not.
You have to build the formula yourself.
Well, you
right,
have to-
if you want
to get
constants,
it
one way to
somewhere
do it
else.
is to make it a global variable. So you just in your application, you just say pi
Yeah.
equals
Yeah,
to
and then to however many decimals. That,
3, 4, 1, 1, 4, 1, 8, something.
Yeah.
Yep. But that would be a good way to do it because once you define pi as a global variable,
Then it's
then the
accessible
rest of the
throughout
application
your-
can
yeah.
get to it.
Yeah.
But only for that screen. Remember, screens do not share global
I've already
variables.
gotten into trouble experimenting with that on my own.
Okay.
Alright.
All right. So, any questions? No questions?
What would be cool would be if MIT would let you copy the second screen from the first. Create by copy.
Yeah.
Screen by copy. That would be a cool.
You can probably do something like that by messing around with the file, the AIA file.
Yes, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. Well, since we do have 5 minutes left, let's see if we can do it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll hack it.
Start the timer.
Start the timer, yeah. Okay, so we want to export selected project to my drone.aia, save the file, and that should save to downloads folder. So we go to the downloads folder. And I'll just make a folder for that so it doesn't interfere whatsoever with all of the other stuff. Oops. There we go. And it has you can see there are 3 files corresponding to screen 1. So I'm suspecting, okay, the first thing is I want to go to Young Android project and look at the project properties first. So it doesn't have any references to, it has screen 1 being the main, which is basically the entry point of the entire thing. So, if I add additional screens, it should not impact this part here. So now I go back to the other folder. Yep, go
Do
ahead.
you think to that you could change the default startup screen? Or
Possibly, if you change that part, but it may not work well with the App Inventor itself because it might have the assumption that screen 1 is always the first one to start. Yep. So over here we go to App Inventor. Okay, so now we have 3 files that are all labeled with screen 1. So if you copy all 3 to screen 2 and repackage the whole thing, that might just add the second screen and make it basically a clone of the first one. So we'll give it a try, right? Screen 1.bky to screen 2.bk. This part there's no quick and easy way to do it. There might be another way to do it, but I don't know how to. SCM to screen 2.scm. So the important part is the first part of the file name has to be consistent. So this time we have Yale to screen 2.yail. Alright, so now that we have cloned all the files related to the screen, it's time to pack it up at this level. Not a level up, but at this level. So I would say zip -r, recursive, to the parent folder, and let's call that drone2.aia. We can call it zip first and then rename it later because the tool may not like having a non-zip ending file. Okay, so now we got everything zipped up. Go up one folder, change the name of drone2.zip to drone2.aia. And here's the moment of truth. So we say import project from my computer. Go to browse, go to my downloads folder. And we we have drone2.aia. And it has 2 screens. And screen 2 is identical to the first one.
Very
Does anyone want me to make a script to do this? Make it interactive too, right? Unzip it and say, okay, you have these screens here. Which screen do you want to make a clone of? Sure, why not, right? And then we'll add more features to the tool, like, do you want to clone like procedures and global variables from a list? Just click, check which one you want to clone.
And then you can contribute it back to MIT.
Yep.
Reputation.
Well, I like to do the back end stuff. I really suck at front end stuff. When I design front end stuff, people say that's not usable. I cannot use this, and I go like, what do you mean by you cannot use this? Like this, and this. That's how you get it done. So, any questions about this? I mean, this is a nice feature because if you have a lot of cool stuff already in one screen, this is a quick and easy way to start a next screen, the second screen, with similar features. It's easy to delete stuff. It's much harder to reconstruct stuff from scratch. All right. Any other questions? And we still have a minute and something left. Yep, go ahead. Undo what? Sorry?
Accidentally delete a block.
Yeah, you asked me that question, and the answer is no. I'm sorry. There's no way to undo in App Inventor 2.
Unless you have a checkpoint. Huh? Unless you have a checkpoint.
Unless you have a checkpoint. That's the only way. But a checkpoint means that you have to actively remind yourself and say, okay, this is a good place to make a copy of my project. But there's no undo feature, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was the one that I deleted like my whole thing because if you're in the design view and you use like a layout, like a horizontal layout, I just wanted to delete the layout, and I thought it would just move the buttons and stuff that I had in there. It would just do that. But if you delete the layout, it deletes everything that's inside.
Oh.
So that's what I did. So just be careful of that. And it prompted. It did say, "Are you sure you want to delete all this stuff?" And I was just like, "Yeah." Of course.
And it will also delete all the blocks too.
Yeah.
All the blocks associated with any component inside the layout, it will also delete those too. Yep. So make sure you save it first next time. Save it before you do any deletion.
And read those little prompts. If it says, "Are you sure you want to delete 60 blocks?" Then you might be like, "Oh, something's wrong here."
Yeah. Well, the same thing with installing apps. Because when you install an app, it asks you for permissions, right? So if you're just installing a torch application, a flashlight application, and it's asking you for every possible permission, it's probably an idea to go like, no.
Why does it even know my position?
And your phone, your phone book.
Access to your media.
Yep.
Bank account.
Yep. All right. Well, we are running out of time today, but I think we got off a good start with the project plan. So let's go ahead and do it. And on Monday, if you guys have questions, I'll address those questions on Monday too.